Great. So tell me a little bit about your organization and what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, our organization, it's called eeden, and we're developing and scaling a technology to recycle textiles, which is actually a huge problem that not too many people are aware of. And we have developed like a chemical recycling technology to separate and recover both dominant fiber types on the market, so cotton and polyester, and they oftentimes come in that combination. So you have to separate them and recover them in order to do a good recycling and not lose a big quantity of the material within those products.
Interesting. Shall we wait a minute for the alarm to pass? Is your phone vibrating too?
No, it's not. What is it?
Are you vibrating?
I don't have any alarm. There you go. Now it's here.
Yeah.
So I'm the latest one who gets saved here.
Well, we could just ignore it and keep going.
Yeah, sure.
So how did you come across this problem? How did you stumble upon this problem, and what drove you to seek to solve it?
Well, that was actually my co-founder, Rainer, who was in a textile university. He's our CTO, and he was asking himself the question, what or how would the most sustainable textile or t-shirt look like, and what would be necessary in order to achieve that? And then it was pretty obvious that one part of that story would need to be that has to be made out of waste, so it has to be recycled materials. And then he got deeper into the topic and saw that less than 1% of our old clothing is recycled back into clothing. And then all the technologies that were emerging on the market were in a very, very early stage. And he took a look at the approaches that these companies made, and he saw that most of them just tend to recover one of the materials in those mixed products. And he said, well, that's not good enough. We need to be better at that, and started to do some research and look for a better solution. And that's how it all started with him. And Rainer, I actually know since grade 1. So we're very old friends from first grade. And then after a certain point of time, he got me involved and was like, yeah, do you want to look at the market side of things and see whether a technology like that would have a potential to become big and actually have an impact on the industry?
So tell us more about the solution that you're building.
Yeah, so it's a combination of different technologies. In the end, you have to do different things. If you have a product like this, you need to shred it, you need to separate buttons, zippers, etc. But there is already established technology for that. So we didn't have to develop all of it. And the main parts that we had to develop were like 3 different steps in our modular technology to, first of all, separate the polyester and separate it in such a way that you can reuse it again. So with the first product that we have in our technology, chemical companies can produce a new fiber out of that, or use it as some kind of base chemical to produce totally different products out of that. So it's a circular product can be for different industries. Doesn't necessarily have to be for textiles again, but obviously that's the vision, to achieve that and close the loop within the textile industry. And then you have to also decolorize the cotton material to have a white product again, and it just a few parameters of the product in order for it to become a drop-in solution for the existing textile industry. So from the cotton, we're recovering the cellulose, which is the main component. It's the most common biopolymer on Earth, and that's what we get out of the cotton. And when you have that purified cellulose, there is already cotton-like fibers and spinning technologies for that. So you can respin that in a fiber that has comparable proportions like a cotton fiber.
Interesting. So on this journey, what have been sort of the biggest challenges you found as you've been developing this?
There's so many challenges and so many stories you could tell about that, but it's technical. It's like we started only with a focus on cellulose. Then we were like, okay, there's so many products that have that combination, polyester, cotton. So we said, okay, how could a solution for that look like, and would that work, and does the first step damage the product for the next step, etc. So many technical challenges, and then first step is like, does it work? Second step is, how do we get it more efficient and cheaper, the process, etc. And then there's so many challenges, technical challenges around that. But then it's all about closing the loop in the industry as well. So it's not only the recycling, but it's a linear industry in the moment. So it works from creating a raw material, pumping it through the industry, producing a t-shirt out of that, or jeans or whatever. Then people use it, they wear it, and if you look at the global context, they throw it away, and then it's garbage. And you need to find the step in that value chain where you can kind of like plug in and use that player, help that player as well, solve their problems, take the material, recycle it in such a way that you can then put it back into the industry as a drop-in solution. And getting all of these partners involved at the right point of time is also a very, very big challenge, obviously. And then fundraising, getting the right people in the team, building a right environment in the company, etc. It's all little challenges, but it's also very, very fun.
Very, very interesting. So let's zoom out a little bit and focus on you. So what are some of the biggest sacrifices that you've had to make on this journey and building this business?
Well, first of all, I would say, generally speaking, it's easy in Germany to fund a company. People always say it's so hard, but the first step is actually just overcoming, like she just said, it's just you have to start. That's like the first challenge that you have to overcome. And then I would say the most, like the sacrifice you make is like all the hours that you put into it. It's not a 9-to-5 job, obviously. You work weekends, you work nights, you do everything for that little company to have an impact. And obviously you make sacrifices when it comes to your personal life and private time and the life of the work-life balance, right? But at the same time, it's not that I would say, well, that's hurting me too much, because what I'm doing is so much fun to me and it's so inspiring and I love it so much that it doesn't feel like a big sacrifice. But then again, when you talk to friends and they were like, yeah, well, I haven't seen you in such a long time, how have you been, etc. And they'd be like, yeah, actually, we haven't seen in such a long time, and that's not good. We should see more often and take time for that. And then when you look back like a year ago and remember, like there were points of time where you thought, well, that appointment tomorrow is so important. I need to prepare and work all night for that appointment. And then a week later, a month later, a year later, you were like, yeah, so what? If that appointment didn't go well, we would still be at a similar point at the moment. And it really becomes about like reflecting on what's the next step, what is really important to achieve that next step, and what are the parts that you maybe can skip in order to still have a healthy balance.
I guess that's sort of the double-edged sword of having such a great purpose is you're so driven by that purpose, and sometimes we get that tunnel vision where we just can't stop going and pushing. And how do you find yourself finding that balance?
Well, I would say that's the most challenging part about it, because it's an up and down, and then there are phases where you say, okay, and now it's worth it, I really have to put in extra hours, and then you need to get out of that again. So each phase of the company was different in that regard, and different strategies to cope with that. Sometimes it was like, okay, not work at the weekends at all, and then there was a point in time where that worked, and then there's times like right now where you have to work through the weekends because it just will help, and you need to do it. But then you'd be like, okay, maybe I can start working at a defined point of time, but then actually also stop at a defined point of time and do sports and meet friends, etc. So for me, it's always reflecting like, where do I stand with that at the moment, and what rules and structures can I implement for myself to always get into a better balance.
So really just setting clear boundaries. That's one of the things I found personally is, hey, switch off at 6 o'clock. Hey, don't work at the weekends. There was a period for me where I couldn't stop working, and just putting those boundaries in was hard enough. But once you get to them, I think it really does pay dividends. So what about when it comes to mentorship? What role has mentorship played in your journey as an entrepreneur and building your business?
An important one, I would say. But first of all, I would say it's hard in the beginning to find the right mentors and to evaluate who is a good mentor for your journey and who's not, because there's, especially in the early stages, so many consultants and mentors out there that come up to you and be like, yeah, I know exactly what you have to do and how you have to do it. You have to do it like this, and there's no other way. And that's always when I become curious now and be like a little bit careful, because I don't like these undifferentiated, people that give you undifferentiated advices, right? That's always when my alarm goes off. But in the beginning, you feel like, okay, those are people that are so experienced, they know what to do. And if they say you have to do it like this and there's no other way, then I probably have to do it like that. And then you make the experience, well, that was wrong. There are so many other ways to do it, and probably also so many better ways to do it. So I would say not every advice from experienced people has to be the best advice. And nevertheless, to have great people around you that you can call with different experience that are a couple of years ahead of your journey are always good. And for myself, it's mostly experienced entrepreneurs, because they have the same mindset, they have went through the same things. So I really always try to look for inspiring other entrepreneurs that are ahead of myself, and where I kind of learn from them and the mistakes they made and the successes they had, and try to take something from that.
Has there been a specific piece of advice that's really helped push you forward and grow in your journey that you'd like to share with us?
When it comes to the company, I wouldn't say there was like that one advice. There were some people at the right point of time that really helped us, like talking to investors for the first time, for example. There was a guy in an established company that had like a spin-off startup within this organization, and we were pitching in front of them because they're like an LP of one of our investors. And afterwards he was like, yeah, guys, we have to make a call, and I need to tell you a little bit. And he was like, okay, if you do your pitch like that, it's okay, but you're not going to make people excited, and you need to do it in a different way and start with this information, then with that. And he really helped us to figure out how to pitch good. And that was really helpful, because talking about the business, talking about the technology is one thing, but then talking to investors, for example, is a whole different persona that you have to address, and that you have to tell a different story and in a different order and all of that. And yeah, you kind of have to grow into that. And that was very important, because if we weren't, if we didn't apply that, then it would have been hard to find an investor, and it would have been hard to finance the journey. And you have to take that into account as well. So that was very important for us. And then there's so many other people that gave us great advices in those points of time that were really important. So I would say it's the whole combination of all of those advices that really made the difference.
What about the worst advice that you've ever received?
The worst advice? Well, there was one guy in the very early stage that always pushed us into, well, in German, I don't know if there's an English word, but we have the difference in between being an entrepreneur and being a Selbstständiger. So self-employed, someone who does like services for people and is just like selling their time instead of creating a business. And he was always giving us the advice, well, you don't earn any money at the moment. You're working on your business, but you need to be a consultant on the side and do so many other things, where we said, well, but we need to focus on our technology. We need to focus on our business. We need to focus on our branch and get the right people involved and do all these things and be really focused and dedicated to what we want to achieve. And he kind of wanted to shift our focus away from that and do everything else at the same time as well, to build up multiple revenue streams. And well, that was a bad advice for us, at least. Might be good advice for others, but I would say, generally speaking, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you need to focus really, really hard on what you want to achieve and find the right focus, find the right scope. And that was a very bad advice. And there were so many other entrepreneurs around us in that bubble, in that city, that took the advice, and where I still see they haven't really evolved. Their business didn't grow. They didn't come closer to the overall goal because they got distracted with so many other things. And yeah, I was really trying to fight that a little bit.
Just a lack of clear focus on one value proposition.
Exactly, yeah.
Exactly. So what lessons have you learned from your failures in business? And
to always get back up. For me, it's like, if I have a failure, when there's the end of the day, it feels really bad and awful, and you be like, okay, how am I gonna solve this, and how am I gonna go to sleep now? But then at a certain point in time, I realized, well, it's always the same. I struggle when I go to bed, but when I get up again, I have a more clear vision. I have a more positive view on things. So I found out this certain part about my personality, and now it's easier for me if I feel bad at night to just go to bed. I was like, yeah, tomorrow you think about it again, and then you're gonna have the more clear vision, and to kind of find out like what personality are you in, what situations do you feel good, when do you have the clear vision for things to sort things out. If you have that rhythm for yourself, that really helps. And for me, that was the change in between nighttime and then early in the morning, and taking each setback as something, well, look at it tomorrow, and then you're going to figure things out, because there's challenges and there's red flags. And up until this point, I haven't found the red flag. I've only found challenges that you have to overcome.
What are the biggest challenges that you've had to overcome, and how have those challenges helped you grow?
I would say there's many small ones and not that one big one, but there's funny stories that really made us feel like, well, are we still the right company to do that if people tell you, well, you're on the wrong path or whatever? But there's one funny story actually around that. Like in the very early days, Rainer and the professor from our university, the chemical professor that helped us in the beginning, they were on a fair and they met a big company, and they got so excited about what we wanted to do, but there was a misunderstanding. They thought we were basically at the point of time where we are right now. So they invited us for a board meeting with the company, and they flew in all the R&D people from internationally, and they came there, and then they wanted us to pitch, and there was the whole board, a whole room of very important people there, and then they were like, okay, now pitch us the idea. What do you want to do? Where do you want us to invest in? And we were like, yeah, we have this idea. We want to create a technology that can do this, that. And they were like, yeah, but what's the technology? What does it do? How does it work? What does it cost? Etc. And we were like, yeah, we'll figure that out. And then after 5 minutes, that meeting was over. The R&D people that came and flew in were kind of mad because they thought it was a waste of time for them. And for us, it was like I don't know, it didn't feel great at all. And afterwards, we really had to take a couple of hours in the afternoon, and we're like, okay, that felt awful. And we need to work and harder, and then have kind of like fly under the radar, etc. That felt like a big setback. It wasn't like an operational setback. It was just like an emotional setback. And there's many more stories like that, and just have to overcome that and keep on doing it.
Interesting. So since you've started this organization, how has your mission evolved since the very start? And what factors have played a part in that evolution?
Yeah, actually in the beginning we started and we're like, well, there's so much potential around this. If you have that recycled product and you can tell the right story around it, and really help people to understand what behavior as a consumer is sustainable and what might not be, there's a huge potential of really helping people to make the right choices. And we thought for that it would be necessary to have their own fashion brand. And we kind of wanted to do recycling and the fashion brand and kind of like everything in between. So yeah, it didn't take too long to understand that that's probably not possible, and you need to collaborate with others to make it possible. So that was the first step. And then yeah, we thought we want to go over all the way to spinning the fiber as well. And then we said, okay, what's the real focus? Where do we really need to invent things? And there was recycling, and we focused more on that. And from then the focus on cotton to the focus on cotton and polyester blends, etc. So it was really that evolving of the right focus for the company, and what do we want to do and what do we don't want to do, and where do we need to collaborate, and what do we need to do by ourselves.
Really interesting. So with your organization, what future are you hoping to create?
We always say we want to create a future where there's an honest and transparent relationship of the consumer when it comes to sustainability, because there's so much sustainability marketing around there that tells you, well, this is recycled and that's why it's sustainable, and just buy as much as you want and it's not going to be bad. But that's not the honest story around it. And we feel like there is a big potential if you don't don't make it too easy, and if you don't lie to people and be like, well, that's the honest way, and you need to take this and that into consideration in your consumption, and you can just help people that really want to make a change with their consumption, but they're just distracted by so much information around all the product categories that we are consuming that you can't go too deep into all those topics. And that's kind of like what we want to achieve, help people to make the right decisions and be honest to them, and we think they will appreciate it.
How do you put that into action?
It is finding the right partners on one side. So there's brands and there's brands, obviously, and we try to find the right partners that kind of share that same vision and want to tell the same story as we do. And I think that's the most important part about it. And then the other part is telling people about it and be like, yeah, recycling is sustainable and it will make the industry more sustainable, but it's a part of the solution. It is not the solution itself. It's just a part of it, but there's more around it. And telling people about that, for me, worked really well because I see the reactions from people and I see that they appreciate that honesty, and that's what they want to know. They want to know, like, how do I have to change honestly, and what the way where I want to go. So it's telling people and working with the right partners, I would say.
If there was a key piece of information that you wanted to share with the audience today, what would that be?
A key piece when it comes to business, or generally speaking?
In general, yeah.
Well, there's always that one quote. I talked to a woman who actually survived the awful concentration camp in Auschwitz, and she told me, when I asked her kind of like the same question, it's worth it to be a decent human being. It's worth it to do good. And I think there's so much truth around it. It's worth it, and it feels better, and it gives you energy to do the right things and do what you believe in. And I think that was a very, very good advice from a woman that went through a horrible, horrible part of her life, and she was still so positive about the future generation and gave that message, and I thought that was very, very powerful.
Great, really great. And so, last question, if there was a piece of advice you could give to entrepreneurs looking to start out their careers, building organizations, or someone looking to change their career, what advice would you give them? Well,
I would say it is those two things of just starting. I see so many people that have great ideas and energy and want to do something, but then they'll be like, but that's going to be hard and this is going to be hard, and just focus on all the challenges and don't even start, even though they have the energy and have good ideas. So starting, and then I think the most important thing is to always get up again, because there's going to be so much setbacks and challenges, and you feel like, well, is that possible? Can I do this? Can my team do this? Are we able to do it? And you just have to keep on going and solve all the challenges bit by bit, step by step, and one step at a time.
Well, thank you very much for sharing your story with us today.
Yeah, thank you. It was fun. Thank you.